Isn't it frustrating to sell products or services, fulfill your part of the deal, and then get a chargeback or a dispute 45 days later? Today, I'm going to tell you how to win back your disputes. If you're selling any product or service online and you have received one chargeback or more, then this episode is for you. And I'm going to tell you 3 surefire ways that you will win back your chargebacks and start getting your money back from customers who are being dishonest with you. Now, I will say that prevention is key. So you could take a lot of steps to ensure that that doesn't happen. And I have a couple of episodes, and I'm going to link one down below where you can look at some ways to prevent chargebacks. But today, I'm really going to focus on what you can do to get your money back and spend the least amount of time and resources in winning the chargeback back or the dispute back. Now, there are many companies that offer these types of services, and it can get quite expensive. I mean, at a certain point, if you're paying, $20, $30 or whatever you're paying for a chargeback, plus you pay a fee for a third-party company, it can range anywhere from $5 to, $20 or a percentage of the sale for them to win it back. It could get really expensive, especially if they're not winning as many back as you're hoping. You might be losing even more. And this is even more important if obviously your product is under $100. If you're paying for the chargeback fee and then for a company to dispute it and all that time back and forth, obviously it could be a big waste of time. So if you have a couple of customer service people or you have some extra time yourself, if you're a small business, I have a really great guide that you can follow to, dispute chargebacks that can really automate the process. You can keep it internal. You'll probably be more successful than the companies that are doing it for you. And obviously you'll save some money by not paying a third-party provider. So there are a couple of things, and I'm going to give you 3 really important things to know about how to dispute your chargebacks. And like I said, go to my website, mariasparagas.com. Send me a note if you want the full guide, and it's literally just plug and play, and I'll send it out to you for free. One thing, and the first and most important thing when you're disputing a chargeback, is to gather all information and documentation that you have about the customer and the transaction. Now, obviously, everybody's business is different, and it can range in terms of what you have available, but essentially you need a transactional approval screenshot. So, go into your gateway, whether that's NMI, authorized.net, Stripe, whatever the case is, take a screenshot of where that transaction was approved and the information on there. So usually it's like the person's name, their mailing address, their phone number. There's a CVV status, meaning that you check the CVV and it was the correct CVV and a whole bunch of other stuff. So, get that screenshot, get a screenshot of your checkout page with your terms and conditions, showing the pricing and so forth. You can get that. You can get transaction receipts or any client contracts, any communication that you've had with the customer, if it's, through email and so on and so forth. Any login attempts, if you have a members area and you can see that the person logged in and so forth, like a log of that. So these are interesting things. And there's obviously a lot more, depends on your business, but gather anything that you have about that customer, any communication, and really put it in one place. Now, next, what you want to do is you want to use that information. You don't have to use all of it. Now, let me explain here. You are sending this document to your processor, and that processor is sending it to the customer's bank. So these people know nothing about your business, know probably nothing about what you're selling or how you're selling it, or really they don't even have time really to get into the ins and outs of the transaction. So what you want to do is you want to dumb it down as much as possible and make it very easy to follow. Make sure a 10-year-old is able to follow this transaction and kind of get to the end. So you don't want to barrage them with a 30 or 40 page document. Obviously, if you're disputing a $10,000 transaction, it's going to be longer. If you're disputing a $500 transaction, it's going to be shorter. But what you have to keep in mind is that you only have to include pertinent information and things that will actually make sense. Let me give you an example. If you have a conversation by email that is a thread of about 30 emails back and forth, and in order to understand what's happening, somebody has to read that whole thread, that's probably not something you want to include. You may want to include one snippet of a customer saying, yes, I did buy your product or whatever the case is. You don't want to include something that's going to confuse the person reading it at the other end and saying, I have no idea what's going on. And if they don't understand, guess what? You're not getting your money back. So you have to keep in mind that you have to provide as much information as possible, but you also have to provide it in a very logical way. And you have to, ensure that whoever is reading it will understand, this is what happened in the transaction. This is what product you fulfilled. This is what the customer agreed to. And ultimately that, yes, they did buy that and they did not complain and they did not fulfill, their part of the bargain. Step 2 is really to put everything on a Word document and keep in mind, like I said, you need to cut out some things that don't make sense or that are maybe more internal or, something that, a person reading it that doesn't know anything about this transaction will not understand. Now, once you have, your kind of broken down list of what needs to be on there and the documents that you are going to be providing, right on top of each of the screenshots or every document that you're providing, you're going to write what it is. So number 1, this is the transaction receipt that was sent on, write the date after the purchase that occurred on, write the date. So you want to really guide the person reading as to what every screenshot is with a little summary at the top. So think of yourself doing kind of like a report for school or something like that. You want to put the screenshot of, what you're providing as information, but then put a little description at the top so they can follow along. You want to put this in one nice Word document. So number 1 is the transaction receipt with, the information that we gathered. Number 2 is an email that we sent to the customer explaining what, when we ship the product or whatever the case is. If you're shipping a product, then you have a shipping receipt. Include the shipping receipt. Here is the shipping receipt confirming that the customer received the product, and so on and so forth. So just literally one Word document with screenshots of everything, really explaining what each thing is. Keep it brief, keep it concise, but complete. So again, I can't tell you how many pages it's going to be, but you don't want to make something too long, because if the other person at the bank receiving it sees that they don't understand, they'll probably just decline you. Last but not least, and this is, just in terms of methodology, the quicker you respond to a dispute or a chargeback, the more chances you are of succeeding of getting your money back. So, usually what happens is that you get an alert from, Stripe or your payment processor that a chargeback has come in. And, sometimes they can give you 30 days to respond. The thing is, the quicker you respond, the more likely you are to win. So if you wait till the 11th hour to respond, like a day or two before it expires, you may run out of luck because, paperwork sometimes takes a little bit longer and you may have missed a deadline and so forth. So what you need to do is, as soon as you get a chargeback, you have a good process already outlined, and you need to respond, if you can within the 48 hours, that's really best. If you can't, really just try to get it as quickly as possible without waiting that last few days to respond. So act fast, basically is what I'm saying. Now, using these tactics will ensure success. I've seen it time and time again. Every time I coach, merchants that work with me at Direct PayNet on how to win chargebacks, or, I've even trained some customer support teams on how to do it. The results are way better than working with a third party. Usually it's more cost effective, and, typically what happens is that within a couple of weeks, the process is really, kind of created and very easy, and a template is there to follow. So, it seems like a daunting task, but it's actually really, really simple with just a couple of tries, and having obviously somebody on your team or yourself dedicated to doing this. And also keep in mind, doing it in-house is usually more cost effective. But if you do have the budget and you don't have the manpower, then obviously there are some reliable third parties that can help you with that. As I said earlier, if you want a guide on how to effectively, dispute chargebacks and have good rebuttals, check out my website, mariasparagas.com. Send me a quick note there and I will send it to you for free. And I guarantee you're going to start seeing some great win rates. If you have any questions, or if you want to check out some ways to prevent chargebacks, check out the description below, and I'll have a link on a past episode on a few good things that you should do to avoid having to use this advice that you heard today. Thanks again for listening, and don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with anybody who can find it useful. Thanks again. Hope you found today's session valuable. If you have any questions for me or just want to connect, please feel free to visit my website, mariasparagus.com. That's mariasparagis.com. I'd love to hear what you're working on, so drop me a line on any hot button issues your business is experiencing. And remember, don't worry about failure. You only have to be right once.